Welcome back, tiny friends. I hope you all have been well. I am super excited to be back with this old camper. And this is actually the first time that I've taken it out of its box since the move. And I want to make sure that everything is still intact and the lights are working and everything looks good. And I think I may have possibly found a base for this. I salvaged this through my move. It was something else that broke. If I use this, it gives me a little bit of space for the backyard and a little bit of space for the front yard. And I kind of want to have both. I also have an idea for some of these circle cutouts that you see. And I really like that there's a frame around this because I really wanted to put an old picket fence. You know, it's going to be falling apart and there's just going to be random pieces. And the frame would be a really good support for that. This is so much fun. I'm ready to get started and I know you guys are too. So today I'm going to be making a few of the bigger pieces and I'm going to start off with the kitchen island. Okay, so this is what the original kitchen looks like. It is really cute as is. And if you have this kit, if you are planning on following along with the original kit, it should look like this. Of course, I have to make this kitchen look like it's sitting in the 70s. So I'm going to be switching some pieces out, replacing some parts, and adding a new color palette. A lot of these pieces look alike, so I would definitely like to say to anybody that plans on building this camper kit, when you're gathering all of your pieces for each individual make, please go by the color of your piece. Right now, I think I'm looking for a light yellow piece because that's what the picture looks like, but it reads natural wood and that narrows it down. So it makes it easier for me to find my pieces because now I know exactly what color I'm looking for. Now I know that I'm looking for natural wood pieces, not light yellow. That's definitely going to help you out, make it a little bit easier to find your pieces and make it less frustrating. This piece is the kitchen countertop. I really love the color that it is. I feel like it fits perfectly in the color palette. It's known as earthy yellow in the book. It's more like a deep ochre or that mustard color. So I'm going to leave it as is. As for the blue pieces, I'm going to cover them up with scrap paneling that I had left over from the walls. Of course, this piece is too small, but I do have more. Here's a piece that is literally just fitting. I have started it, and all I need to do is paint it. I think I can get away with that tiny corner showing. I don't think it's going to really show in the end. So here are my pieces. For the countertop, I'll be using some of this scrap aluminum trimming. I'm moving on to build this sink, and I'm using the paper templates that come with the kit to trace and cut out pieces that I need for my sink. This is a piece of aluminum paper that came with the kit. I'll save this piece because I'm most likely going to end up using it. I'm just using tacky glue to attach these pieces of paper to the pieces for the sink. According to the kit's instructions, you're just supposed to glue the sink down right to the top of the counter, like so. In the book, it looks like it actually fits inside and goes up to the top of the counter. But you're just supposed to glue it down, just like this. I want this sink to go all the way up to the counter so you can actually see that metal rim around it. But before I do anything to it, I'm going to go ahead and use my pencil just to mark where I want to place the stovetop. I'm going to sand all four sides of the sink just a little bit, just enough to actually fit it inside the opening. I don't need any glue because it's a nice tight fit, so it's going to stay put. But now it's actually lined up to the top of the counter and it looks a little more natural. This wooden frame fits inside the oven door opening, so I'm just using my silver chrome paint pen to make it look like metal. I'm going to be using some of this chipboard to create the stove top, the oven door, and a refrigerator door. During my move, I salvaged several backings and chipboard pieces from old photo frames that were either broken or I knew I wouldn't be able to upcycle or repurpose. So if you're tossing away any old broken photo frames, make sure to collect the backing pieces or any mat board pieces, because those are really useful for your building supplies. Starting with the oven door, I'm just tracing the opening of the oven. This piece is actually going to be bigger than what I need, but it'll be easier to trim it away a little at a time. Right now it's the same size as the frame, but I need it to be a little smaller so that the silver frame shows around the door. I'm going to use 2 of the cut pieces that I trimmed off and glue them together to create the oven handle. For the stovetop, I've added a back piece. It'll sit on the countertop, and I'm using the paper template that creates the little pot to find out what size it is so that I can create my stovetop burners. I do want 2 different sizes, but I'm going to add 3 burners to the top of the stove. And I'm just using my circle template to trace the 3 burners onto the stove top. I'm going to go ahead and cut them out. I have used my silver chrome paint pen to create 3 circles that will be the bottom part of the burners. For all of my chipboard pieces that I'm creating, I'm coating them with 3 to 4 layers of wood glue, letting each layer dry in between. I have gathered and prepped all my pieces and parts, and now the whole unit is ready to be put together. I will say it did take a few attempts to get that right shade of avocado green, but I finally got it. After the paint was dry, I went around the edges with a little bit of brown chalk pastels. I also outlined the burner circles with black paint. I used these metal embellishments for the burners, and this is what it looks like. For the burner prongs, I've already painted the ends of toothpicks, and I'm just cutting the tips off. I'll be using 4 for each burner. For the sink faucet, they do give you pieces to create one, but I'm using a scrap cut piece of aluminum wire from a previous project. Never throw away any of your scrap cuts. I've also taken a tiny skinny strip of that aluminum paper and I wrapped it around the very end of the faucet tap to give it a little more realism. I'm using super glue to attach it to a small metal grommet, and then I'll be placing that on top of the counter. I shifted my faucet over to the side just a little bit. And now I'm adding little decorative beads for the faucet knobs. These are technically metal bead spacers, but they make great little faucet knobs. And I also drilled a hole inside the sink to add a drain. I just put a tiny little grommet inside for the ring. This is what the whole part looks like, completed. Now it's time to glue this into place. I'll be painting over the blue corners with antique wax. It'll blend it in nicely and you won't even notice the difference. I found this vintage New York postcard that I'd like to stick to the front of the fridge, so I'm going through my stash of polymer cane slices and little foam cuts to pick out some cute magnets. I created that postcard so long ago and it was in my stash, and these little cut pieces make the perfect magnets. Next, I'm making the benches and the table. It took a while to find all of the parts to create these pieces. This piece of fabric came with the kit to use for the benches, and I'm totally going to use it because to me it really does look like it's from the 70s. It has all of the same colors that I'm using in the project. I won't need to use all of these templates on these sheets, so I'm cutting out the ones I do need. Some of the templates are doubled, so to save time and paper, I just cut out one and marked it 2 times. I'm starting with the bench seats. All my pieces are cut and prepped, and I even have 2 extra pieces that I'm going to try to use later on. I would also like to point out that these yellow strips are not double-sided tape, and they do not come with the kit. The yellow strips actually represent glue. The kit directs you how to fold the sides of the benches by folding the flap down first, pinching the corners, and then trimming the corners away. I have used that technique to fold in the past, but for this, I didn't really like how that was looking. So I'm going to do the traditional gift wrap fold. I'm using my 3-in-1 glue for this because for some reason, the tacky glue just didn't want to work well with either the fabric or the piece. Now these pieces do have a coating on them, and that could be the case, but it wasn't working well with the fabric as well, so I'm moving on to something stronger. Once the flaps are secured, I'm just trimming off the excess. I'm going in underneath the fabric with the glue as well, so that it all sticks together nicely when I fold the flaps into place. A lot of these pieces and parts look like they don't make any sense, but it all comes together in the construction of the build. So just trust the process and carry on. In the photos that I've been referencing, the camper benches actually sit a lot lower to the floor than the kit benches. So I cut down all of the base parts to the benches so that they sit slightly lower to the floor than the original benches. To make this job a little more easier on myself, I decided to number all of my parts according to the booklet. Since they all look alike, but they are slightly different in size, this will help keep the build going a lot more smoothly. This will ensure that I'm placing the right pieces accordingly and not have to guess what part goes where. The original bench base has 2 drawers, but because I cut them down, I'm only going to add 1, and I'm replacing the handles with a more MCM style. The bottom and the top pieces for the bench seat are 2 different sizes, and according to the booklet, the top piece is a larger piece and will extend slightly over the bottom. The bottom of the benches are completed, and in comparison, they look pretty good. Now it's time to add the drawers. Here you can see how the top part of the bench extends slightly over the bottom part. This is the first bench, and it literally took all of the clamps that I had to secure each piece into place while the glue dries. According to the kit's original placements for the benches, they're intended to sit on the side where the walls are, and you really don't see the backs. So the bottoms don't have any backs to them, and this is what it would look like. The camper bed is intended to sit on the opposite side in the open space where the kitchen is. I didn't think that made any sense, so I'll be placing my benches on the side where it's more open, closer to the kitchen, and I'm going to need one bench to have a finished back. So I'm going to flip this side around. The unpainted side will be completely covered up by the cushion, so you won't see it at all. I also created a panel to close up the back of the bottom piece, and now the bench that will be seen has a finished back. This is what the benches look like completed, and now they're ready to be aged. I wanted the table to match the countertop, so I painted it with deep ochre. I added a little bit of brown chalk pastel for aging, and then coated it with liquid glass. I also added aluminum trimming around the sides. The original table comes with 2 legs and a support bar, but I'm only going to use the support bar to create a peg leg, so I'm cutting it down to the height I need, and I'm going to take a piece of aluminum tape and wrap the leg to make it look like aluminum. I'm using a little yellow and brown chalk pastels to tone down and age the cushions. I'm going to use black chalk pastel on all the wooden parts of the bench. Now it's time to make the kitchen cabinets that will sit above the sink. This piece only has a top and bottom. It has an open back, and the front side is made of paper. The cabinet comes with 4 doors that sit vertically across the front panel. I'm going to have to get a bit creative with mine because I was missing a part and I only have 3. So I decided to turn my cabinet doors horizontally to fill out some of the space. I also had to create an additional piece because I'm going to need to add a part that will be essential to the stove. So right now, I'm just playing around to see how I'm going to construct the cabinet. I'm also going to use a leftover scrap piece of the wallpaper for the cabinet doors. All my parts and pieces are now ready to be assembled. So this is what my cabinet looks like. And now it's time to add that additional piece for the stove. This stove needed a ventilation system. I created the hood that will sit underneath the cabinets. I used 3 layers of chipboard, cut my pieces, put them together. The top part I scored and bent it, and then I covered the whole thing with a couple layers of wood glue. I think I have mastered the color formula for this avocado green. I used a dark green and gradually added a yellow. I need to attach the hood to the bottom of the cabinet. I'm just going to use tacky glue for this. I almost forgot to make the towel bar for the side of the kitchen island. I added a vintage towel and those 2 scrap pieces. Well, I attempted to make some pillows. I think this is the smallest yo-yo pillow I've ever made. I have one more piece to make, but first I'm going to dress the windows using this 4x4 sample cut. I really love this fabric, and I think it just needs to be in the camper. But there are a lot of windows, and 2 of them are really long, so I'm going to have to do this very sparingly and as strategically as I possibly can. I'm obviously not going to have enough for all of the windows, but I'm going to make this stretch as far as I can. Since I didn't have a lot of fabric to work with, I decided to create valances. I was able to cut the piece down into 5 strips, and I added very skinny seams. I want these pieces to have that stiff accordion look, so I'm soaking them with fabric stiff. Once I get my first fold, I'm just pinching the seam very tightly. I'm going to repeat the process as I continue to fold this piece back and forth. This took a little longer than I expected because I'm trying to keep these folds the same size, but it's a little difficult because it's such a tiny piece of fabric. Once I completed the fold, I added my mini clip to clamp it down. And then I added more fabric stiff. I'm going to let these sit overnight to dry, just to make sure that they dry completely. It's the next day, and it's time to unfold these. But these things are pretty hard, so I'm guessing I got a little carried away with the fabric stiff. I'm pretty sure it took me about the same amount of time to unfold these as it did to fold them. Once I did get them unfolded, I gave them a nice stretch to loosen them up. I also decided that I would cut this piece in half into 2 pieces for the square windows on the sides. For the longer windows, I'm going to be using 2 pieces, one on each end, to make it look like they're opened. And for the last 2 windows, I'm going to use this faux bamboo mat. It's made with plastic straws, and to me, it looks kind of like mini blinds. The last piece that I'll be making today is the sofa bed. I'm going to be using the bed from the kit to customize my pieces. For the cushions, I salvaged a piece of foam from packaging that has kind of like a velvet side to it. I'm going to use this green fabric that I love so much. I've created templates to tuft the cushions. I got my thread, and I'm ready to create. Okay, tiny friends, here are the final results from today's episode. And I'm pretty sure all of the big pieces are completed. So when I return in the next episode, we'll be able to fill it with all the fun accessories that I'll be sharing with you all in the meantime. And I'll also be working on the base, creating the yard, which I'm super excited to do. I don't know about you all, but I am ready to move into this little vintage camper. But first, I'm going to have to find a place to park it. Before I come back, I will finish off this opening with more of the chrome trimming. You'll no longer see that original paint color, and it'll have a finished look. As always, I'd like to thank you all for watching and welcome all my new subscribers. Thank you all so much for your support. If this is your first time visiting TinyKeyHoleMinis and would like to see more of my miniature creations, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit that top bell notification button to be notified every time I upload a new project so you don't miss out. Until next time, tiny friends, I hope you all have a lovely day, and I will see you all on the mini side.